The Koreans are leading the charge in the electric car market with these two vehicles, the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai IONIQ5. But which of these two is best? You see, underneath the skin, they are quite similar, but externally and to drive, they are very different. Anyway, we're going to find out because I'm going to talk you through their exteriors, their interiors, show you how practical they are, try out their technology, and of course, take them for a drive. This is the car version of Squid Games. Anyway, I'm Matt Watson, and you're watching Carwow.
Buying a new car? Then head to Carwow, and my team will help you find your next car at a fair price. Carwow, your one-stop car buying comparison site.
Let's start off this video by comparing these cars' design. So I'm going to start off with the Kia. Do you know what? There's something a little bit of the Aston Martin DBX about this integrated spoiler. It's cool. I like the full-length light bar. This sort of reminds me how I imagined cars would look in the year 2021 when I was a kid. The blocky graphics and stuff like something out of the 1980s. Very, very cool. I love it. In fact, I like travelling behind both of these cars in the dark because they have such unique light signatures. From the side, the cars yet again look very, very different. The thing about the IONIQ5 is that when you first see it in pictures, you think it's the same size as a Volkswagen Polo, but now you can see next to the EV6, it's huge. It's a huge hatchback. There is something of the Lancia Delta Integrale about it though, isn't there? Can you see that? Yeah. Now, there is specifically something about a Lancia Stratos about the EV6. The designers even admit to copying the whole roof design. You see it like a Stratos? But overall from the side, I think it also looks like a Jaguar I-Pace, though slightly better looking. If you want to make these cars as good looking as possible, you need the top of the range 20-inch alloy wheels rather than the standard 19s, though that will affect your efficiency a little bit. Here from the front, yet again, the IONIQ is very unique looking, though the design, I'm sure, has been inspired by that of Boba Fett's helmet. I really like the lights here. The way the daytime running lights are actually in this part of the bodywork really stands out at night, especially in your rear view mirror. Really good looking car. This, it's less unique looking, I think. In fact, the design is sort of reminiscent of the Volkswagen Scirocco. Can you see that? In fact, overall, this car is like a greatest hit of some cool looking cars, isn't it? I do like the look of this. At first, I preferred the look of the Hyundai, but I'm starting to get used to it, and I think that it won't age as well as the Kia. But which do you think is the best looking overall? I'll put a pin comment, you vote. Which is the best looking, the Hyundai or the Kia? It's up to you. Here on the inside, the Hyundai is just as quirky as it is on the outside. Really like the design. It has a very spacious, airy feel. Obviously, this is a built from the ground up EV, so you've got your batteries underneath the floor. There's no transmission tunnel or anything like that, so there's loads of space here. That means lots of good storage here, and you can even get a special storage system which you can slide forwards and backwards. The glove box as well is huge. Look at how to draw. You've got a glove drawer, not a box. Decent sized door bins as well. It's practical, and I like the look of it. I love these huge screens here, and they're fairly bright, responsive and easy to use. Though the sat-nav can be a bit of a faff, though I just use Google Maps through Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Digital driver display has all the information you need in terms of range and various trip info. It's all good. I think what's interesting, the fact that you've got this two-spoke steering wheel here, and there's no Hyundai logo on it, just 4 dots. What's less good though is the gear selector. It's a bit phallic. It sort of looks like a travel-sized sex toy. Anyway, moving on. I like the fact that Hyundai hasn't been tempted to operate the climate controls through the main infotainment screen. You've got a separate system down here, though it is touch sensitive, so it can be a little bit more tricky than if you've got physical buttons to actually make sure you're hitting the right bit. Right, turn it down, it's getting a little bit too hot, a little bit too quickly. One of the things I'm not so keen on though is this. Some of the plastics are a bit scratchy. It's a bit of a shame. And why have we only got old-fashioned USB ports? Why not USB-C, huh? It's 2021. This is a futuristic looking car. I want USB-C, all right? Here on the inside of the Kia, it's very similar to the Hyundai, but actually quite different. So you've got the same amount of space, you've got the same screens, but you don't have that extra weird little bit here as well. You don't have the sex toy to put the car in gear. Instead, you've got this twiddly dial, which I think is much better to use. What's not so good to use though are the heating controls, because you have to toggle between maps and stereo, so that's your volume. Then if I want to use the climate, I have to press that, and then that becomes my heater, not the volume anymore, and then this is all the other heater controls. So it's just one press more than in the Hyundai. Also on the Kia, the buttons are switched on the sides of the steering wheel compared to the Hyundai, so you now have the ones for the cruise control on the left rather than on the right. Another way that this Kia is slightly better than the Hyundai is the material quality is just a bit better. Like the fabric on the seats are just nicer than in the Hyundai, though I must point out that this is the top spec version of the EV6, whereas that's the mid spec version of the Hyundai. And these seats aren't entirely perfect either. If you look at these headrests, they push your head quite a bit far forward. So I'm not sure that's ideal for your posture. I need to have my head just back a little bit. Overall though, I think I prefer the inside of this Kia ever so slightly, just like some of the design touches here on the dash. Also, look, we've got a normal glove box, which is less impressive. However, while we do have one normal USB, the rest of them are more modern USB-Cs, which is good. I like that. Also, I like the design of this center console here with a shiny bit of trim on it. The way it separates you from the driver, it just feels more sporty. And I think overall, I do just prefer the inside of this Kia EV6. Here in the back of the Kia EV6, there's enough room. Now, knee room is really good. Absolutely loads of the stuff. Headroom, I'm fine. People over 6 foot should just about be fine, though this roof does just curve in somewhat. There's loads of foot space as well because you've got a completely flat floor. What's not so good though is the fact that the front seats are quite low, so you can't actually fit your feet underneath the seats in front, so you can't really stretch out. Also, the seats seem quite low to the floor, so your knees are quite high up, which isn't quite so comfortable on longer journeys. Now you can recline the seat backs if you want to sit more upright. You want to do that, now you're going to want to sit like that. And look, if you fold down this, you have some cup holders there. Now you might think, oh look, I can cover those so I don't end up putting my wrist in them when I'm just resting on the armrest, but actually when you slide this, it's just open like that. Why? Anyway, you do have some through loading, which is useful if you want to carry some long thin objects, maybe some skis. One last thing I want to show you is this. USB-C ports there, built to the front seats. That's clever. This Kia is pretty blooming decent in the back. Here in the back of the IONIQ5, it's not quite as clever as the Kia. For instance, it's just got normal USBs yet again, and they haven't been thoughtful about where they've located them. They're just in the usual position. Also, there's no through loading. What? However, other than that, this car is better in the back seats, and I'll show you why. So, that seat's in my usual driving position like in the Kia, and while there is ever so slightly less knee room than in the Kia, there's still absolutely loads. But because this seat is slightly higher up than in the Kia, you can slide your feet underneath it, so you can stretch out, which is great. Another thing that's good is the fact that this seat is slightly higher from the floor than in the Kia, so you don't feel quite so uncomfortable on longer journeys. Also, you've got more headroom than in the Kia, so even really gigantic people will have sufficient headroom. I also like the fact that, as in the Kia, you can recline the seats, but here in the Hyundai, you can slide them forwards and backwards as well. So if you slide them forwards a bit more, you can recline the seats a bit more for more lounging around. Yeah, if I had to be taxied in one of these cars, I would pick the Hyundai for sure. Now let's talk about the pricing, and it's a little bit confusing. So the Hyundai starts from £37,000, whereas the Kia starts from £41,000. However, with the Hyundai, you can get a smaller battery version. That's why it's a lot less expensive than the Kia, whereas you only get a larger battery version with the Kia. Still, when you're comparing like for like, the Hyundai does work out a little less expensive than the Kia, but that's because it's got better equipment. And I'll explain why now. One of the most talked about features on this new Kia and Hyundai is something called vehicle to load, which doesn't explain much. What it means is that you can actually plug appliances directly into the car's battery to use them like you would in your home, such as this kettle. It's brilliant. However, you only get it as standard on the top specification Hyundai, whereas all but the entry-level Kia gets it. Now, the two manufacturers also like to say you can actually charge other cars using this feature. You know, plug it into another electric car and give them some charge. However, I've actually tried it, and you can only charge them at about 1.3 kilowatts, which means on a big battery car such as this, it's going to take 2.5 days to charge it, which is pointless. You can get both the Kia and Hyundai with premium relaxation seats, which basically recline the front seats, a bit like in business class, so you can have a nap while you're charging your car. Now, these seats, they come as standard on all but the entry-level Kia. However, you can only get them on the top specification IONIQ5, and then they're an option anyway. The top set Kia also gets a sunroof. You can't get a sunroof at all on the Hyundai. Do you know what? Deciding which of these two cars offers the best value overall does take a lot of work, but don't worry, I've done it for you. In fact, if you click on the pop-out banner up there for the link in the description below, you can see which car I think is the best out of these two and in which specific trim. Sort of gives away the verdict to this video, but there you go. So click if you want to see that. You don't want to follow this to the end. Now let's compare these cars' boot capacities. So with the Kia, you get 490 litres of space. With the Hyundai, you get 527 litres of space. Also, this is a little bit annoying in the Kia. This is my charging cable. It won't quite fit underneath the false floor, not properly. Yeah. How did they get that wrong? Whereas in the Hyundai, look, they are able to fit this big bag underneath their false floor. See? That's much better, look. However, it's not all win-win for Hyundai. The boot itself doesn't really have that many features, whereas in the Kia, you've got some hooks and, most importantly, this. I can fold down the rear seats by pulling these levers here, whereas in the Hyundai, it doesn't have those, so I have to go around to the seats. So bear with me. There we go. Yes, over here. That's annoying. See? Both of these cars have some extra storage underneath their bonnets, so they've got front boots, also known in the UK as fruits. So in the Kia, if you have the rear drive version, you have 52 litres of space. However, for this four-wheel drive version, because there's less space because of that extra motor at the front, you only have 20 litres of space in there. With the Hyundai, the rear drive version has 57 litres of space, whereas this four-wheel drive version, that's reduced to 24 litres of space. But it's still 4 litres more than the Kia. It looks like the Hyundai has won the battle of the two fruits. Now let's talk about batteries, range and motors and all that kind of stuff. So the Hyundai is available with two battery sizes, one 58 kilowatt hours and another one 73 kilowatt hours. You only get one battery size in the Kia and it's 77 kilowatt hours. Now the range for the Kia varies between 300 and 328 miles. For the Hyundai, it varies between 240 and 300 miles. For the power, it ranges from 170 to 305 horsepower with the Hyundai, from 226 horsepower to 321 horsepower in the Kia. Now, if you're thinking about buying one of these cars, you're probably going to have to sell your current car. And if you want to make sure you're getting a good price for the car you're selling, click on the pop-out banner up there, or follow the link in the description to go to Carwow, because you can now sell your car through us as well as buy through us. And the way you do it, you just upload some photos, fill in your details, and dealers will bid on your car. And you can choose which dealer to go with, and they'll come to your house, pick up your car, take it away, and give you the money via a bank transfer. Dead simple, easy to do, and you can make sure you're getting a good deal on the car you're selling. Now let's compare what these cars are like to drive. So I'm going to start off with a Hyundai. And the first thing you notice when you sit in it is that the dash is quite low, so you get a really good view forwards because you've got a massive windscreen, big side windows, you've got a big back window, all-round visibility is cracking. Now the car is actually set up quite softly, so when you're going on a twisty road, you do feel it lean a bit in the bends. It never feels like cumbersome, but it doesn't have a sporty edge. It's more set up for comfort rather than handling. Now, generally the comfort is good, so it deals with bumps pretty well, but occasionally the suspension does thump over sharper bumps, so you get like a shock going through the cabin. So even though it is soft, it isn't completely floaty the whole time. One thing I can't criticise though is the performance. You put your foot down in this dual motor version and it picks up like that. It really is quick. 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. And I have no reason to doubt that at all. Another thing that's pretty decent, the brakes. So sometimes electric car brakes can feel a bit funny, but this one, no, they're perfectly natural feeling. You also have the ability to alter the amount of regen effect when you lift off the accelerator, because then the motor works in reverse and it charges up the battery and it gives a slowing effect. So I can control the amount of that using the steering wheel mounted pedals, and then you can put it onto iPedal mode where you can bring the car to a complete standstill by lifting off the accelerator, and then you can just drive it without touching the brakes unless you really need to have to stop suddenly. You can turn it off if you don't like it, and then it'll just coast when you lift off the accelerator. Trouble is though, it won't recharge any battery then. Even when you touch the brakes, it doesn't recharge if you've got regen off. Now, one thing you notice when you're driving at speed in this car is that, obviously being electric, it's quiet. Though you do get a bit of tyre noise, a little bit of wind noise. It's not terrible at all, but it's not the most silent of electric cars. If you want a car that's even quieter on the motor or faster road speeds, click on the pop-out banner up there to check out a car that's ever so slightly more serene to travel in. Okay, now jump to the Kia, and it's very, very similar to the Hyundai in terms of the performance. Yeah, really quick. Actually, it feels I don't know, a little bit quicker. Maybe that's just psychological because the interior feels a bit sportier. The brakes feel the same, so nice and easy to control the brakes. You've got the same regen system, so you can one pedal drive it if you want to, or coast if you'd rather do that. In terms of quietness, it's about the same as the Hyundai, but there is one key difference, and that is the suspension. It is just a little bit firmer in this car, and as a result it stays flatter in the bends. It just feels a bit more responsive, a bit more sporty. And I wouldn't say it's the most sporty electric car to drive, well, most sporty of the mainstream electric cars to drive. If you want to find out what that car is, you need to click on the pop-out banner up there to watch my video on that particular electric car. But it definitely feels a bit more keyed into the road than the Hyundai. Now, it doesn't feel quite as softly sprung, but it doesn't feel any more, let's say, uncomfortable. Because while that Hyundai does sometimes get caught out by sharp bumps, this doesn't so much. You do feel imperfection in the road and maybe a little bit more, but overall I think the comfort level is the same. I don't think there's much of a sacrifice. I prefer the way this car handles. I prefer the balance of sportiness and comfort, and I think stability that you get from this Kia rather than the more kind of slightly looser feel you get in the Hyundai. Another way this car is a bit different to the Hyundai is the visibility. So the view out the back window is nowhere near as good. Also, I don't know whether it's the slightly more steeply raked windscreen or the fact the side windows aren't as big. The overall visibility isn't quite as good either, and that could make it a bit harder to actually navigate this car through town and through tight spaces. It's not going to be terrible, but it might be a bit more awkward. Speaking of which, what is this guy doing here? Come on, you're an off-roader. I pulled, I didn't see you. I thought this was an off-roader. Isn't that an off-road? Can you go? Do you reckon you can go on the cut, the little verge there in a big off-roader like this? That's why you bought it, innit? Some people, eh? What's that all about? You had a blooming 4x4. What's the point of having a 4x4 if you're not going to take it off-road? Not even on a grass verge? So then, what's my final verdict? Well, these cars are so closely matched that really you could just go with whichever one you like the look of best. But I'm going to try and be a bit more objective, and I think that overall the Kia just feels a little bit more expensive inside. It's also slightly better equipped, and I think it's ever so slightly better to drive as well, and that's why it wins this test. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you did, give it a like. If you didn't, give it a... Let me know if you agree with my verdict in the comments below. Click on those windows there for some more videos, and on that box there to sell your car through Carwow. We'll get a great price for you.